What is going on, everyone? We are the Cinefanatics. My name is Robert Adams.
I am trying to make sure all my places where this video is up is all muted too. I'm Chris Adams.
It's been a while since we've been live, so glad to see everyone out there. I don't see any smiling faces.
I see Timmy and Billy and Jane and Jimmy.
That's a Jim Carrey movie, isn't it? Like, look at all the smiling faces. I don't see smile. Oh yeah, no, that's Bruce Almighty.
What I was quoting, no, but what you were quoting, maybe.
Wait, is that Bruce Almighty? What's the one? He's the one where he's the newscaster and he's interviewing the crazy people with the cookie shop.
It's Bruce Almighty.
Yeah, and
that's how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, that's right. He's asking the dude behind who's like typically in the kitchen, like, what do you think of all the smiling children? It's like, I work in back. I see no smiling faces. I see no smiling children. It's so funny.
I am Walter Concrete. That's how the cookie crumbles.
That's how the cookie crumbles. Yeah, we're going to be sitting here quoting like random Jim Carrey isms like the entire night. That's actually the sole purpose for this video to exist, is just for us to quote Jim Carrey.
We just think
we're ranking movies or something, but nope, just quoting Jim Carrey. That's how it is.
Just want to celebrate old Jimbo.
Yeah. So in actuality, the reason that we're doing this for the Marquee is 3 of like probably some of his most popular movies, or at least the most like groundbreaking movies of his, all came out in 1994. And I did not realize this until we started getting into the realm of movie trivia, as far as that being a thing. I did not realize that Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber all came out in the high holy year of film, which is 1994. And that's just insane. And it just leads more to why 1994 is, in my opinion, the best year of movies of all time. So...
One of.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So yeah, because of that, we decided this year at some point we need to do a Jim Carrey Marquee. So we figured, why not do it in April?
April.
Let's do it in April. So ta-da, that's what we're doing here.
It's the 4th month, and we're celebrating the 20th anniversary, or whatever, however anniversary from 1994, whatever the math is on that.
30.
And then you've got Jim Carrey, who's got 3 movies. Listen, it works out.
Before we continue, though, let's knock out the YouTube things. Again, haven't done this in a while, so streamlabs.com/cinefanatics. If you have any questions, comments, issues, complaints, feel free to share it there. If you want us to read off your tier ranking list, send it there, and we will read that at the end of the show. So, yeah, we'll see how we stack up and then compare that to like what yours was. So feel free to send that in. Thank you. Very much appreciate that. Also, patreon.com/cinefanatics. If you feel like we are worthy of your support and you have the means to support us, please hop on the tier that's good for you. $1 tier, $5 tier. $1 gets you access to the Discord. $5 gets you access to our movie watch-alongs and the movie trivia hangouts, which we have one coming this Monday night. So make sure you hop on that $5 tier if you would like to join us for just playing some fun, good old-fashioned general movie knowledge. So, anyways, I don't know of anything else, but yeah, let's move on with this. We are going to be tier ranking. For those of you who are not familiar with it, we are going to go through his movies one at a time and rank them at like best to worst. It'll be more explained once we get the tier ranking board on here. But before we do that, let's go through the rules. Johnny, what are the rules for tonight?
I forgot how to do Johnny's voice. They're going 3 films per tier.
It's Johnny. You're an asshole. 3 films per tier. Something like that. It's usually how it goes.
Johnny's been taking so much time off that Johnny doesn't know how to use his own voice anymore. We'll work on that before the next Marquee next week.
Yeah. Stay tuned for the end of this episode. We got a big announcement for the Marquee for next month. Next week, next month, whatever. Anyways, and here is all the movies that we are ranking tonight. We got 18 of Jim Carrey's finest films. At least 17 are of his finest films. One of them, not so much. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Unfortunately, we can't do all of his movies, so there may be some that are missing off of this list. So
if we're missing your favorite Jim Carrey movie, get a new favorite Jim Carrey movie.
Yeah. I mean, some of these obviously we had to remove, like, say, we didn't put Simon Birch on here mainly because he's just a narrator. He really doesn't play a massive role in that movie.
And
then
to the
there's
one person out there that loves the number 23, like I said, get a new favorite Jim Carrey movie.
Yeah. So there was definitely a reason why we're not putting the number 23 on here. So
I'm trying to keep to like 3 films in the F tier, not
all the films.
All of the, yeah.
Not saying that he makes bad movies, but number 23, that's a terrible movie. So, anyways, just count that as F tier.
Not his fault, you know.
It's Joel Schumacher's fault. Was that Joel Schumacher? I think that was Joel Schumacher. Anyways, we'll have positive things to say about Jim Carrey in a Joel Schumacher movie here in a little bit as well.
Yeah. Truth being told, this whole list, it is hard to actually come up with 3 F tier movies from this list. This is one of those situations where there might be 1 or 2 on here that we do consider F tier, but a third one just is going to end up there just to end up there.
Yeah. As Jake in the chat is saying, the Majestic better be at least B tier. You're going to be proud of me, Jake.
Speaking of,
you're going to be proud of me. You're also going to be proud of another member of the team here. Let's go ahead and bring him out from the Majestic. Let's go ahead and bring out Carl. Carl, hit it.
It's a big night on the Marquee. We actually are finally tier ranking the movie that Carl comes from.
Yeah. So those of y'all who may not have understood why we use that, I just really, first of all, I really like the Marquee, the Majestic. Spoiler, it's gonna go high in my opinion. But yes, that is also one of my favorite, I guess, or the one that I know of off the top of my head of someone turning on lights to like a Marquee. So it just happened to fit. So yeah, that's where Carl comes from. We'll talk about that more here in a little bit. This is our tier ranking board. We got 6 tiers, with S being the top, meaning superb or super awesome or whatever S stands for. And then all the way down to F, which means this failed on every level, or whatever other choice of word that begins with F you would like to use to describe that movie.
Friendship, not something that you have when you show somebody this movie.
Yeah, good point. Anyway, so this is going to be our ranking. We're going to put these on. We're going to go through the movies one at a time and rank them where we think they should go. Again, 3 films per tier, so this is going to be a lot of fun. Ready to go, Chris?
Yes.
All right. Wetting that whistle, and let's get started with, which I think is probably most people, at least around my age or so, most people's first full interaction of Jim Carrey, and that would be 1994's Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. I know this movie has not aged well. There's definitely at least one particular part of this movie that doesn't work nowadays.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to kind of just gloss over that. I know I am at least of the opinion that like movies are made as a product of their time. This is something that would not fly nowadays. And we probably, if Ace Ventura was to be made nowadays, it probably would not fly. And those particular scenes would have been addressed in a different way. That being said, there's movies that are coming out today that probably have stuff that will not fly 20 or 30 years later. So just keeping that in account, there's a lot of movies that are always going to do stuff that's just didn't age very well at all. So aside from that, this was my first Jim Carrey movie. I'm aware of like his other movies that he did, like Rubber Face, or was it Once Bitten, or even Earth Girls Are Easy. And I've seen some of those since, but this really is like the first Jim Carrey front and center, seeing his full-on antics, everything that he's capable of doing right there. And I absolutely loved this movie. I will always love this movie. This is S tier for me. This is peak Jim Carrey right out the gate.
I love these movies too. Both of them are a lot of fun. Both are movies that are just so easy to throw back on and just rewatch. They have such great rewatchability factor, or I just need a movie right now to throw on while I do other things that I can like glance over every now and then and just kind of laugh at or chuckle at. Both of them are actually just really good for that. For me, Ace Ventura is not S tier, but I do have it in the A tier slot. But it is in my second slot in the A tier, not the top slot.
Okay. I like Brian Nussbaum. So talking from your ass doesn't age well. Okay. Then.
I would get up and do that right now, but I am corded in.
And I don't want to get up and bend over. I'm old.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't think anybody wants to see that from either one of us. So
that's true. Streamlabs.com/sonoffanatics. If you would like to see that,
prove me wrong.
Actually, you know what? Send us money, and that'll keep us from doing that. Should have led with that before I gave out the whole. I don't want to bend over.
Dang.
I know. I put the horse before the cart there, so to speak. Anyway, so you have you said A, kind of like a second
slot A tier. So yeah, keep in mind again, we're talking about 3 movies in each tier. So this is the second slot of my A tier.
I will go ahead and I'll agree. I'll put it at the top of A tier for right now. That being said, we are not polling the audience this time. We may bring that back again. Nothing really wrong with that. We just chose not to do it this time. No real reason for that. But anyways, moving on to another 1994 movie. Chris, you could start off with The Mask.
Somebody stop me. No, it's this is again, I love that we're covering like pretty much.
I stopped him.
He did stop me, literally. I love that we're covering all 3 of the 90s.
Was so dumb.
Right off the top. And this one is actually, so we know The Mask is based essentially off of like a comic book, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And that as far as playing this role, I think Jim Carrey was probably like the best possible choice. This is one of his most iconic roles. I feel like I'm going to say that for several of these movies, especially these ones that were starting off in 94. I think it broke the mold for a lot of what you could do from a comic book into a film. I know there's been comic book movies prior to 1994, but this is one of those that was kind of not like a really widely known property from the big houses, the big players. This is kind of like a dark horse. Not necessarily dark horse themselves. I really don't know, but
wow, yes, it is a dark horse comic. Yes, good job.
My brain knew it. I didn't. But yeah. So as far as like performances by Jim Carrey, this is easily one of his most iconic roles. I think we were introduced to Cameron Diaz in this movie as well.
She did get an introducing credit in this. Yep.
So there's a lot going on in this movie that we just look back fondly on. For me, it is. Let me look at my list here. I wish Letterboxd let me actually like group them up into tiers. I know I could technically put them on a Word document or something, but let's see. S, A, B. It's in my B tier.
Okay.
I have The Mask at the bottom of my B tier. It is a really good Jim Carrey movie. I do have several movies from him that I like more, but really good movie. And I have was it Cupid and Pete stuck in my head all the time.
Go boom chicka chicka boom boom chicka chicka boom.
I get it confused with that song from Beetlejuice also all the time.
The Banana Boat song, Deo.
Yeah. For some reason, I get it confused with that one all the time.
They both have like kind of that like Caribbean, Cuban feel to it. So yeah,
out there in the water somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of like what you're saying, based off a comic book, I tend to find like a lot of like comic book movies, especially like in the 90s, these successful ones were the ones that people didn't know were based off a comic book. So they weren't going into a theater with a preconceived notion of how they feel like these characters should be. It wasn't a Batman that we were already familiar with who Batman Bruce Wayne is. not a Superman or Spider-Man. Most of your successful ones, specifically in the 90s, are all from like indie comic books that just weren't very well known. The Mask, The Crow, Blade. Well, Blade's not indie, but he wasn't very well known. He wasn't sold as a comic book movie. It was more of a vampire movie, plain and simple. And then you got ones like Spawn that just fell flat. So, yeah, Mask is easily at the time, one of the best comic book movies ever made. And I love the fact that because of Jim Carrey, who already has like a cartoonish personality, perfect fit for a role of essentially a live action cartoon, complete with him turning into like Tex Avery characters and whatnot. I think it was phenomenal. Everything that they did with this movie, from like the makeup, the special effects, the acting, the story, I thought it was great. I do have this as A tier.
A tier. Ooh.
I would, but the way we have it sitting right now, I would put it under Ace Ventura, but it is still pretty high for me.
It's at the end of my B tier. And Nerd says S tier. I really love The Mask. Jake says The Mask is high B, low A for me.
I can see like we put that like low A, or do you want to just stick it in top of B for right now?
You put it in S. I put it.
I put
bottom
it
of
A.
B. So it would be probably bottom of A.
Okay.
And Brian says he would put The Mask in A tier.
Okay. All right, next one. The third of our movies released. You are welcome, Jake.
Yeah. There's a reason for that.
There's other ones that I did want to put on there. Like, I actually do like his Count Olaf from Lemony Snicket's
That one barely slipped out of this list.
Yeah. And then
if we had All Night and all the energy in the world, we would have put probably another 5 to 10 movies on this list.
I wanted to keep Fun with Dick and Jane on there also, because I remember having a fun time with that movie. I just don't remember, like, I've watched it 3 or 4 times and I barely remember anything from that movie. I remember I liked it. It's just not big enough for.
Again, I know there's people out there who really wish we put Mr. Popper's Penguins on here, but it just didn't make it,
Yeah. Anyway, so next one from 1994 is another classic, Dumb and Dumber. This is easily top tier Jim Carrey. Not just Jim Carrey. I would say this is also top tier Farrelly Brothers as well. This is where like Farrelly Brothers really had a good formula on how to make movies, and it just seems like almost all their movies since have been trying to kind of recapture that in some form or fashion. Like, I think their next one after this was Kingpin, which I really don't like. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I might need to revisit it, but I just remember not liking it. This one I love just because of the chaos and the buffoonery that is going on in this. I cannot sanction his buffoonery. But yeah, I have this as S tier as well. This is one of like the top of Jim Carrey's performances.
So you guys can tell, having watched probably several Marquees now at this point, that my brother usually flocks to nostalgia.
Yep.
If he watched it back when he was a wee lad or knee height of a grasshopper or whatever old people say, then that's probably a movie he's going to rank a little bit higher. Granted, he had to have loved it back then, but
correct.
For me, I honor No Man. And while I do think Dumb and Dumber is a fun, fantastic Jim Carrey comedy movie, in terms of what I love about Jim Carrey and what he's provided for us since then, there's other movies on this list that ranks far higher. Again, I like Dumb and Dumber, but it's C tier for me. It is C tier. There's a lot of like really great quotable lines in this movie. Like talking about so you're telling me there's a chance.
Yeah.
You want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Not right now.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Oh, I almost did it still anyway. But no, it's C tier for me. As good as it is, as quotable as it is, as fun as it is a C tier for me.
So I'm going to put it top of B. I said S, and it would be probably at the bottom of the 3 that I wanted to put S. So I'll go top of B for right now.
We got Nerd saying it's a D tier for him. Well,
because
D for dumb.
Dumb.
Brian says C tier. C tier for me.
Yeah. All right. Next one is, speaking of Joel Schumacher, Batman Forever. And that is on to you, Chris.
Batman Forever. So here's the rub. Back in the day, these were our like peak comic book movies. These Batman movies, I even argue like that maybe Batman and Robin probably still was bad back then. But Batman Forever is probably one of the highlights of 90s comic book movies. It is one of the ones that features some of the best casting, not just in Jim Carrey's Riddler, which actually ended up being really good for the type of movie that it was, but also like Tommy Lee Jones's Two-Face was such an amazing casting choice back in the day. So both villains and how they teamed up, the story and who they casted as them really elevated this movie, I think, a whole lot. Plus, speaking of music, didn't this movie have like such an incredible track too?
It had a fantastic soundtrack with Seal's "Kiss from a Rose," U2's "Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me." Oh, geez. I'm trying to remember who performs the other songs. There's a song where when Riddler comes home and we first see his weirdly shaped apartment that looks like it's just a giant hallway. There's that song that's playing that I really like. There's a couple others, and I just can't remember off the top of my head at this exact moment. And I'll know them all the second we're done with this stream tonight.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has a fantastic soundtrack.
The Seal song. All that, yeah, Kiss from a Rose.
Yeah. Where were you wanting to rank it?
For me, listen, the only downside I would say to Jim Carrey's casting in this movie is that he was playing the Riddler more like a Joker and maybe less like actual Riddler, which I guess it might depend on the comic book run and how the Riddler's presented in it. But for me, as much hype as I'm giving this movie, it actually does end up at the bottom of my D tier on this particular list.
Oh.
Yep, it hurts.
Oh.
It hurts. It's a fun movie to go back and watch, but as far as all the movies on this list, bottom of D tier for me.
Oh, heart attack.
Here comes the nostalgia again.
Damn it, now I can't say the first thing I was going to say.
I swear, if you were going to put this in the S tier, I was going to come in there.
This wasn't going S tier.
Yeah, holy.
This is my favorite of the 4 Batman movies at that time. Like, I actually did prefer this to 89 Batman. And again, kind of like what you were saying, it's nostalgia. I liked the fact that Batman was darker, but I also liked that when this switched over to Joel Schumacher brought a lot more flair and color and a lot more comic bookiness to it, rather than like Tim Burton's. While it did have comic book feels to it, it was a lot more darker and serious in tone. And I liked what they did. I like bright, colorful things, and I like, ooh, pretty. So I like what they did with this. And I do like Jim Carrey's performance. Like you were saying that he was like the Riddler. I actually kind of compare him to the actual Frank Gorshin Riddler, because Frank Gorshin's Riddler from the Adam West series is also kind of like over the top, just like Jim Carrey. It's almost the same kind of comedic performance. Although he's a little bit more serious than Jim Carrey typically is. But yeah, I love this movie. It's one of my favorites. I put this in B tier. And then, yes, as Jake is saying, this is where the line, "I cannot sanction his buffoonery," comes from when they were interviewing Tommy Lee Jones about working with Jim Carrey. I think that's a great line, and that sounds like something that Tommy Lee Jones would say.
I cannot sanction this buffoonery.
But yeah, I have it B. So you said D?
Yep, bottom of D for me.
Well, that was easy. It's going C tier.
Mid C.
If we could just please like keep these exactly like that for the rest of this, that would be great.
Yeah, I was say we honestly could just like plug them into these kinds of spots right here. and then just plug movies around them.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep saying plug. Deal with it.
Next one. This is on to me. This is Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls. It's still a fun Ace Ventura movie. I don't think it's as good as the first one. Just because I think he worked much better in like that urban environment, like in Florida, where he just interacts with people who are living their day-to-day life. It is, I would say it's easier for us to connect with that as like, say, people who live in an like maybe urban area in the United States. We are going to come across people more often than say like this one takes place in Africa, I believe, which we're not familiar with. So it's kind of like a duck out of water or fish out of water, duck out of water, fish out of water for him and for us as a viewer. And I feel like that brought down kind of like my level of enjoyment. It's still fun though. The biggest thing that I love about this movie and is I had never really heard too many people bring this up, but I find it absolutely hilarious that Ace Ventura absolutely hates bats in this movie right after doing Batman Forever. I thought it was like, I don't think it was made that way, but I think it is like a funny circumstantial situation. I have this movie in C tier.
Oh man. So as far as this movie goes, as far as the two of them, I do like this one better than Pet Detective. I also have this one in A tier, but it's actually right above Pet Detective. It's literally this movie, then Pet Detective. And there's just so much fun, I think, about this movie. Just putting Jim Carrey in these various environments, and doing like his goofy comedy there, I thought was so funny. I love the we have the opening of the movie, all righty then, followed up with the everybody loves the slinky, down the temple steps.
After they basically redid the entire opening from Cliffhanger.
Yeah. with the raccoon. Oh my gosh. That was so sad back in the day too, because like, no, the raccoon.
I actually felt a bit worse for the raccoon than I did for the girl in Cliffhanger. Like, no, not the raccoon. Oh, drop her. That's fine. I don't know who she is, but don't drop the cute little raccoon.
No. I quote this movie a lot in various capacities. One of which is like sometimes when I'm behind the wheel of the car, I go, nobody wants to play with me.
Yeah. Or he starts singing Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Yeah. Say hello to my little friend. There's so much that I remember from this movie all the time, and it's the top of A tier for me. This is the big classic Jim Carrey character that I almost would have put in the S tier because of that.
So you said A, I said C, so this is going B. So we just went through a bunch of classic Jim Carrey movies, and still nothing is in S. We're in for a wild ride with this one, y'all.
So Nerd said he would put this one up in A with the other one too, so just like me.
I mean, I do like them both somewhat equally. It's just right now with what else I have to rank on this, I kind of want to put some distance between the two of them. But normally I do like both of them. It's a fantastic character for him to play, so.
I almost wish that they did make a third one with him. If they had done it at the right time, I wouldn't do it now. I think it's probably too late to try to do it another Ace Ventura now. And I know they tried to do like the kid, the son of, the child of, for multiple different Jim Carrey characters.
They didn't try to do anything else. You are mistaken.
There was like the child of Ace Ventura. They had the son of the mask or what. Like they had like all of these different things. And it's like, I understand that you're not getting Jim Carrey back for whatever reason, but just call it a day on the property at that point.
For a while there, Jim Carrey wasn't big in doing sequels, which is it's understandable, especially in the realm of comedy. It's really hard to nail that same comedic. What everyone loved about the comedic stylings of your first movie, it's hard to nail that again. And other than this Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, the other sequel that's on this list, yeah, I could see that being a true statement.
There's a couple other sequels on this list.
Well, a sequel to his own movie. not like say Batman Forever is a sequel, but it's not a sequel that he wasn't a part of the originals.
Sonic.
Yeah, and there's Sonic. Yeah. Well, at this point, let's move on to the next one. This is going to go to you, talking about The Cable Guy.
Cable Guy. All right, this is one of those movies that I actually did not see until prior to this doing this marquee. This is one of those movies that was done in the 90s and just kind of slipped my ever watching it up until this point. And kind of now that I've seen it, kind of looking back, there's probably a reason why I never got around to this one. It is not my favorite on this list. It's an intriguing story, I guess you could say. It's very interesting watching him play this kind of like a psychotic, I guess would be the term, character. Socially psychotic. I don't know what term we want to use here. Nerd in the chat will probably have a better term for me, but yeah, this one. So you warned me beforehand that this is a slightly different role for Jim Carrey, and it definitely is.
Yeah,
but it's not one that I really truly feel is too far out of his range. Obviously, it's just the movie as a whole. I don't think I vibed with it. Not that there's anything like inherently like really awful about it. I just, at the end of the day, I was kind of like, okay, well, that was the movie. Big gulps, huh? So yeah, it's not high for me. It's one of my F tiers on this list. I'm just not a big Cable Guy fan. Yeah. It's, I think, mid F tier for me.
So I think I did see this in the theater when it came out, because by this time after all these other movies that we just talked about have come out, I'm like, all right, Jim Carrey's like my favorite actor of all time. I will go see anything that he's in. And then I saw this and I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't be so quick to say that. And now looking back on it, I feel like I'm better now at explaining why than I could back then. This is dark Jim Carrey. Up until here, Jim Carrey has kind of like what I was saying with The Mask. He's just been playing a live action cartoon, but he's always been like the protagonist. He's always been the person that we're cheering on, that we like, that we want to see more of. In this movie, he's an antagonist. And it was really weird getting that same lovable goofball type of antics from him, but he's the villain. And the problem with this, and I had to sit here and write this out because I don't want to be misconstrued on this at all. And again, going back to Nerd in the chat could probably word this better than I can. But
by the way, Nerd, we're saying that because you float around like psychology stuff.
Yeah. So I'm saying I didn't like dark Jim Carrey when it first came out. He's great as long as he's the fun-loving, goofy hero. But this movie made it look like his antics were more of a mental health issue. And then as I grew up, I appreciated it more. And you start to feel some sympathy for his character. It is a dark and well-done story, but it's just the way that they are portraying his character. It's a little hard when you make it an antagonist instead of him being the fun, lovable, goofy cartoon character. And yeah. I think that's what most people had when this movie came out. That is what people had a problem with this movie. They were used to him being the hero, the lovable goofball. And now here's a movie where we're not supposed to love him, but he's still Jim Carrey, still doing Jim Carrey things. And it's just weird. Like the best shot that I could explain this with is that dream sequence where he's outside of the door and his eyes are glowing and he's still acting like Jim Carrey doing goofy things. Okay, see you later. Bye. And his eyes are glowing and everything. It's really off-putting and very strange. And it's not what you were expecting.
Yeah.
I do appreciate this movie a little bit more now, just because since then we've seen many facets to Jim Carrey's acting ability, but this one still is just kind of for me. I have this in D tier.
Yeah.
So you said F?
I said middle of F. You're saying D. And Jake, usually, for the most part, we're usually just ranking the movies themselves up against other movies. There may come a time where we're probably doing it based on performance, but we'll usually mention that up top if that's how we're doing it. For the most part, if we don't say anything, we're ranking the movies as the movies themselves
compared to all the other movies on the list.
Compared strictly with the other movies on the list, not necessarily any movie that doesn't appear on the list.
So, for example, there's one I'm going to put in F tier. It is not an F tier movie, but just I'm gonna be like on a soapbox with it for a little bit. So, stay tuned. Next one is Liar Liar.
Yes.
This movie's just super silly. I love these kinds of Jim Carrey movies. It is of the same vein of like Yes Man or Bruce Almighty, where the character that Jim Carrey is portraying, his antics are being caused by the fact that he's limited, maybe by some kind of force, some kind of power. I know, like Yes Man it's not really any kind of actual like spiritual power that's controlling him. It's just a covenant that he is swearing to. But like Liar Liar, there is some supernatural thing that is forcing him to not lie.
Which is never really explained, which is great.
Yeah. Bruce Almighty. I mean, if you want to call God supernatural, I know that's a little weird. And
I would, yeah. Okay. You would call God supernatural, yes.
But yeah, you've got some kind of otherworldly power controlling his character. And that's what I like. Liar Liar is really the first one of these types of movies that he does that he's like that. And I think it's a lot of fun. This movie's endlessly quotable. And as a kid, I appreciate this movie because it gave me my first introduction into Jennifer Tilly, who I will grow up loving as Tiffany. So I have Liar Liar. It's a B tier. It's stupid. It's not. If you like, was it Legal Eagle? Go watch his video. This is not accurate to like actual courtroom how a trial would go at all. And his video is hilarious at pointing out like all the problems with this.
A goose.
Yeah. But yeah, this is a great movie.
Before I say anything, I love that Brian's dropping some of my favorite lines. I'm kicking my ass. Do you mind?
Yeah. The hell are you doing?
The pen is blue. Pen blue.
Royal blue. Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, the claw. The claw's gonna get you. Ooh, the claw. Freaking Carrey always. Yeah, this movie is probably what falls under my nostalgia pick because I love Liar Liar. This is one of the ones from my childhood, basically, that I saw. And didn't realize until I was an adult why I had to during a certain courtroom scene. But it turns out I didn't realize that I heard that part when I was a kid, and it meant nothing to me then. It means something to me now. So that's fun.
Objection! You have no way to prove that my client is the man the man on the tape is her. You're so much better than my husband. Damn it!
I've had better.
Oh yeah, I've had better. That was a good one.
Yeah, honestly, like this movie is just solid standard Jim Carrey. I really enjoyed the premise. The premise is such a great premise. A man who can't tell a lie while also being a defense attorney, essentially. And just overall, it's just great. It's just a great use of Jim Carrey's comedy stylings. So for me, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm with Jake here. Liar Liar is an S tier movie for me. It is the middle of my S tier.
Well, it's going to go middle of A tier because I had it B. My dad is a liar. A what? He goes to court. Oh, you mean a lawyer? And the kid's like,
Nerd says B tier. I know Brian said S tier. Someone was trying to convince Jake to go to A tier, I guess, but you stand your ground, Jake. It's S tier.
I have unpaid parking tickets. Go easy on me. I like when he's talking to the person who towed his car. You caused damage to me. You're going to take me to small claims, or I'm going to take you to small claims court. You're not going to show up, and I'm just going to shove it up the tailpipe. And he's like, you've been here before. That was so great. Those of you who are not familiar with this show or how this works, we will go back over all of this after this is done and maybe make some final alterations as to where some of these are going. So Liar Liar may be going middle of A. It may go up higher towards the end. So we'll see.
We'll find out.
So stop booing me, Brian. We may fix this.
Boo him! Keep booing him!
Boo this man!
I know this full well that I'm going to get booed at some point probably too, so I'm just going to go for it.
So we're going to go to the next one. Start off with Chris. This is 1998's The Truman Show. I was going to say, like, how much of this movie can we talk about without sending out the flare for PLD to show up?
Listen, let's get to the Jim Carrey bit here in a second, but yes, Ed Harris did deserve a nomination for this movie, 100%.
Oh yeah, Christoph is a fantastic character.
Such a good character. So yes, sure PLD will probably tune in afterwards, and if we stick with where I'm putting this movie, he's going to be very happy because this is an easy top of S tier movie for me. This is just the perfect blend for me of both comedy Jim Carrey and dramatic Jim Carrey. On top of that, this movie has caused trauma in my life. And I will explain why. Because I saw this movie, what was this? You said 98, 99?
98.
98, that's what I thought. So in 1998, I was 8, 9 years old, depending on the time of the year. Young child. We went and saw this movie in the theater. And when we left the theater, I was questioning everything about my existence. That is horrifying for a kid. I walk out of the theater going, wait a minute, is my life a TV show? Are there cameras all over the place in my world? And you know how many years of self-induced therapy I had to commit myself to in order to finally get that thought out of my head that that's not possible at all? Especially considering now, because if it was possible, our YouTube channel would be so much more popular than it is. Yeah, this movie, upon rewatches later on in life too, there's just so much about this movie that I absolutely love. The fine details to how they made his day-to-day life actually work as a TV show. All the different stuff about how they kind of played into how a TV show works. We're having this kind of an episode right now, and we're going to have this kind of an episode later on. His dad comes back. He's got a love interest, like all of this kind of stuff playing into it all. And then just seeing like the jaw-dropping foundation, like how the whole thing works with that dome and everything. And over in it was actually in Burbank, California, though, wasn't it? Like his name was Truman Burbank, but I think they actually had it in Hollywood.
Yeah, I think it was like supposedly like just north of like Burbank.
Yeah, it's for me. It's also like the real precursor to kind of like a prophetic movie to the coming reality show onslaught that still is going on to this day, basically. So I think there's just so much about this movie just to love. Not only just his performance, which is endearing and amazing, but the movie itself is just fantastic. It's at the top of S tier for me.
So I'm trying to remember when this came out. So this came out in 1998. So the internet had already started.
It is in its early stages for most middle income households.
Yeah, so this was okay. So this was coming off of stuff that, like what this movie was doing, had already started existing. I don't know how many of y'all, Jake, north of Burbank, Glendale south of Burbank. Yeah, it was Burbank and Glendale, and so basically what I mean by that is, like, if y'all were familiar at that time, one of the first iterations of this in real life was a website referred to as Jenny Cam. It was a woman while she was in college. She just stuck a bunch of like really, really low end webcams at the time all over like her home, her dorm room or whatever. And she would literally film all of her days, everything she did while she slept, while she cooked, while she changed clothes, while she had people come over and had relations. All of this was available for you to watch on her website. And this came out before Truman Show. So yeah, stuff like this actually did exist in some form at that time, which is wild. It's wild to think of it at that moment, because this is something that could be easily done nowadays. Look at like YouTube and Twitch and stuff. How many times have we seen people on Twitch stream for days on end, and we're seeing their lives? We might not see them, like, obviously, according to like terms of service, you're not seeing someone taking a shower or going to the bathroom or having sex. But I mean, it's definitely something that's plausible in some form or fashion now.
Depends on what part of Twitch you're on.
dark Twitch.
Hot tub
Twitch. Yeah. But yeah, stuff like that actually can exist. And that's just wild that you could say this movie was ahead of its time for those ideals, just the fact that that already existed. And then I also love the fact that the way they developed Truman Burbank, the character, is he is acting like the world is his stage, not knowing the world actually is his stage. So it's just a great character. And I love like Jim Carrey being able to play that role. It's a perfect role for him to do in that. I actually kind of want to rewatch this now that we're talking about it.
It's such a great rewatchable movie too at this point.
I will also go ahead and I'll agree. Let's put this in S tier. Mainly, I did have it high A tier, but 2 of my S tiers have already been bumped down, so I'm okay with this going up to S. It does deserve it. If we were allowed to have 4 in S tier, this probably would have been my 4th anyway. So,
listen, there's very few movies out there that someone can stop in the middle of the movie and completely sell me on Ovaltine. Mostly because I've tried Ovaltine and I hated it. So, you
should drink more Ovaltine.
More Ovaltine, please. No, this is top of S tier for me. This is not a factual statement. This is not a factual statement. I feel like we've had no missteps. No missteps.
There's going to be a misstep here. There's going to be a huge misstep, and I will apologize.
There is one movie that's going to end up low on this list that a lot of people, depending on who you ask, will say that it's a beyond S tier movie. So
we're going to disappoint a lot of people with one of these,
which we're not even close to that movie yet. So.
And I apologize again.
Stick around.
This is going to be a slaughter here. I know. I'm sorry. Next one, though. This was going to go to me. I love Man on the Moon. Yes. Believe. I'm going to go ahead, kind of like what I did for Ace Ventura, talk about the controversy of it. I understand that there's controversial behind the scenes, and Jim Carrey was
cuckoo.
Almost abusive, borderline abusive, if not actually abusive to some of his cast members and people behind the scenes because of how much he went method with this role.
He's no Jared Leto. The product
speaks for itself, though. This is a phenomenal movie. He does an amazing job portraying Andy Kaufman, and even he does even better portraying Andy Kaufman's alter ego of Tony Clifton. I thought. This is an amazing movie. I absolutely love everything he did for this. He should have gotten an Oscar nomination for this role. I have this as A tier, but
So for me, yeah, this is actually a really great biopic of Andy Kaufman. Jim Carrey was probably the best choice for this portrayal. And yeah, like Nerd pointed out, he hasn't seen it, but the documentary, was it from Jim to Andy, or Jim and Andy, or something like that?
Yeah.
I'm not a huge like documentary person. I really should probably get more into documentaries in general, but that's one of the few that I actually watched, and man, it was so good. The documentary behind this movie was so good. It actually made me really it's hard to say maybe enjoy this movie more, but there's a fine line. It made me enjoy the movie, but also like really understand why that might not have been the best approach for Jim to take in this role. But as a whole, like I think everything, his just portrayal of Andy Kaufman is just really good. But for me, I do have it in the B tier. It's at the top of the B tier for me. It's one I need to probably go back and rewatch at some point too, because it's been a long while since I've seen it. But
all right, I'm actually going to put it at the top of B tier. So moving everything down.
What did you have it as?
I had an A.
I mean, I have it at the top of my B tier.
Well, I had Dumb and Dumber S tier. I'm actually going to put it in between.
Yeah, I had it top of my B tier. Again, this might be a situation where we just kind of shift some things around. I feel pretty good about it being in B tier though, compared to all the other movies.
Yeah. All right. Next one, starting with Chris.
Me.
Myself and Irene.
So yeah, there's technically 3 movies on this list that I needed to watch for this marquee. Cable Guy was one. This was another one. And the other one, obviously, we'll get to probably towards the end of the list.
Right. We got to turn on the AC before we started.
Yeah, it's a little toasty. Me, Myself, and Irene, very interesting concept of a movie. And for Jim Carrey playing this role, I thought it was a very like, it's a very cool character in terms of a Jim Carrey role, because he gets to play around with that dual, like just being the straight man while also being this crazy character essentially, who's super confident and super out there, but also like just kind of deranged a little bit in what he does. I don't know how like accurate of a portrayal this movie is to the actual what do you call it?
Dissociative identity disorder.
Yeah, DID. Yeah. I don't know how accurate this movie is in portraying that, but as far as like a fun movie goes, I thought they did a great job with it. The kids in the movie, his children in the movie, they were probably my favorite part of the movie. They were so funny. They were so funny.
Get that mother Deuteron out of there.
What's that electron doing in there? Get it.
So good.
No, Jake, that is true. That comment that I'm not highlighting is actually is true, but it's one of those movies where it's like, funny comedy, ha ha ha. In real life, it's like, no, it's horrifying. You don't do that. That's a horrifying thing to do in real life. But yeah, as far as this movie goes, though, I feel like I spent a lot of time talking positively for me to put it exactly where I'm going to put it. It is the one movie I have in my F tier that I don't think fully belongs in the F tier, but it's ending up there because I don't like it as much as everything else on this list. I have 2 movies that I feel squarely belong in the F tier. Cable Guy, obviously one of them. Me, Myself, and Irene don't feel like it belongs there, but it is there.
Yeah. So my opinion, this is another round of silliness from Carrey and the Farrelly brothers. Not as good as Dumb and Dumber, but still just random silliness. And Carrey does very well with these. playing an oddball character that's just stuck in a very serious situation. Like he's got effectively like a mob and the police force after him the entire time, while he's got a romance building with Irene. And then he's also got this second personality. So like there's all kinds of weird craziness going on around. And that's not even talking about the character of Casper or Whitey that supposedly killed his parents. So yeah, like there's just so much going on within this movie, and I love it. I thought it was crazy and zany all over the place, and it's my kind of crazy and zany. That being said, with everything else that's on this list, I had this as a C tier. So you had an F, I said C.
Puts it in the D tier. That's the top of F for me. So, it's one of those, it could flip flop probably with whatever I have in the D tier. I actually don't know. Let me look at that. Let me see this. Yeah.
All right. So next one. This one's going to be interesting to talk about too, but so this was going to start off with me. So we're going with How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
I feel like we've ranked this one before.
We have with like Christmas movies.
Oh, yeah.
Again, like my opinions and stuff when we were ranking it, comparing it to other Christmas movies, at this point we're ranking it compared to other Jim Carrey movies. So some of that may be aside as far. So I can't remember what I said previously. I didn't go back and watch what my opinion of this movie was in the Christmas rankings, but so I'm going to say right off the bat, I had to make this one F tier for me. I don't want to make it F tier. I actually enjoyed this movie. I thought they did a phenomenal job with like the makeup, and having Jim Carrey play the Grinch is great. But within the rules, something has to go F tier. His facial mannerisms fit perfectly for the Grinch. The makeup is phenomenal in that the makeup essentially breathes and allows his facial expressions to come through, which is insane. It's hard to beat that. And I don't know if we could potentially get another live action Grinch unless you get someone who's equally talented in facial expressions, say like David Howard Thornton, who plays Art the Clown in the Terrifier movies. He also played the mean one in that stupid Grinch Mean One movie, which his performance and makeup was good in that also. So even though it was low budget, they did a phenomenal job on him. But man, this is like, I don't think this is something that you can constantly do. I think we managed to get away with 2 performances of a live action Grinch. And this one, obviously, this is going to be the standout. But yeah, I think it was a great movie. He did it very well, but I have to put it in F compared to everything else on here.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like talking about performances specifically, this is kind of the gold bar standard, I think, for how you portray a live action Grinch. Even so far as if you actually go to Universal Studios, whenever they have the Grinch, I think it's probably just during Christmas time. Same makeup job pretty much on the person portraying the Grinch at the park itself. Same basic performance, same basic makeup job. So they really set the standard, I think, for what they wanted from the Grinch in a live action situation with Jim Carrey's performance here. Yeah, so when it comes down to it, it is a question of where does this movie fall in line with everything else on this list. And yeah, same bucket. I actually do enjoy this movie. I know a lot of people in the chat are going F tier. And I understand why, like Nerd said, the movie's excruciatingly too long. Yeah, it's got some pacing issues for sure. It's got a couple different issues here and there. I think that's just kind of issues you get when you're trying to stretch out a 30 minute
cartoon,
30-minute cartoon into a feature length movie, which, I mean, they probably still could have done it like an hour and a half and probably been fine. But regardless, the movie, while I do like it, do enjoy it, and I don't watch it every single Christmas, but maybe every other Christmas or so. I might put it on, but
I think I'm due for a rewatch this holiday season.
Yeah.
So
on this list, it doesn't rank as high as a lot of these other movies. There's just so many other iconic roles, so many other classic Jim Carrey movies. This one is in the D tier for me. I do enjoy it more than an F tier placement, but it's not very high.
I'm gonna put it at the bottom of D for right now.
That sounds fair.
There's a couple of others. There's definitely one that everyone and their mom will agree is going to go F tier. So let's hold up the space for that. We know which movie that is. There's one other that's possibly going to go F tier. And again, I'm sorry.
I'm an idiot. You're an idiot. That part was such a good joke. That's like That's like a classic comedy joke, kind of like a Who's on First type situation.
I will say this is what's interesting, as Jake is saying, one of my regrets as far as paying for a ticket in the theater. This was the first movie I saw in a theater after graduating basic training when I went to the Air Force out of high school. So after basic training and I was allowed to leave base and I could go to like the mall and stuff. I didn't have a car at the time, so I had to take like public transit, and it really was like a bus that would take you from was it Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio to the River Center Mall that's downtown where the Riverwalk is next to the Alamo. So that I had to go see the movie at the mall, and this was the first movie I got to see after graduating. No, sorry. I saw Charlie's Angels on base.
You liar.
Sorry, this was like in 2000. It's 2020. That was 24 years ago. I was in the military. Give me a break. I have partaken of alcohol and marijuana since then, so it happens.
Not while he was in the military, but
not while I was in the military. Sure.
Wink, wink, wink. Nod, nod.
Not purposely, at least.
Anyway, what's the next movie?
Next movie. All right. So this one is going to be a lot of fun. Next movie is The Majestic. For those of y'all, again, if you're not familiar with this movie, this is the movie where Carl comes from. So let me go ahead and show you like what Carl looks like. Carl, if you could come back out here just to introduce yourself again real quick, since we're talking about the movie that you're in. Anyways, yeah, so that was Carl's really good at his job.
Carl, that's not quite what we wanted, Carl.
It's not what we wanted, but hold on a second.
A little early for that.
Carl, can you fix this for us, Carl, please? Thank you. There you go.
You know, good man, that Carl. Good man.
Yeah. He's a hard worker. He goes above and beyond. But
yeah, we really should pay him something. Anyway,
if you would like us to pay Carl, streamlabs.com/cinefanatic.
Oh man, no, you go ahead and start on this one. It's been a while since I've seen this movie. It's due a rewatch. I really wanted to get a rewatch in before this one, but I'm gonna let you wax all positive about this movie before I fill in the gaps and say anything else.
This is a beautiful movie. This is probably in my opinion, one of Jim Carrey's best dramatic performances. There's barely a hint of him having a comedic personality in this movie. He's playing straightforward drama, and he does a phenomenal job in this. I typically don't like movies that use amnesia as a plot device, mainly because no one ever does it the way it would be in real life. For example, he plays a screenwriter who's being accused of being a communist. He gets into an accident. He washes up on a beach of some like little town in California, and he has amnesia, and everyone in the town thinks that he is a soldier who went off to the war, who was presumed dead, and that he's finally returned home, but he doesn't remember anything. And there's another person in the town that fought in the war with this character that everyone believes Jim Carrey is, and that guy's like, you're not Luke. I don't believe you're Luke, and I believe you're scamming everyone. And my problem that I have with it is, in real life, if this was to happen to any of us, we'd be like, I might not be Luke. I don't know. I have amnesia. I don't remember everything. In which case, this other guy would be like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. I believe you're not purposely trying to do this. I believe that you may actually have amnesia. But that's not how this plays out. That's my one and only nitpick about this movie. Otherwise, this movie is gorgeous.
So what you're saying is that these characters are acting like they're on Twitter.
Sort of
having real conversation.
They're not using the real world as a basis for their foundation of why they do what they do.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Nailed it.
It's a gorgeous movie. It's, again, kind of like he comes back. Everyone in the town thinks he's a long lost soldier. Him and his father, played by Martin Landau, restore this old movie theater, the Majestic, and it makes the entire town come back alive. This town has had a hardship of losing a lot of sons to the war, and seeing this character that Jim Carrey's presumed to be coming back, it makes everyone happy and fills everyone with hope again. And it's just a really well done movie. Mm-hmm. The reason it's well done is it's also directed by Frank Darabont, who I'm a huge fan of, who directed Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile. He also did The Mist, which I'm not a huge fan of that movie, at least the ending of it. And then Frank Darabont's also responsible for getting The Walking Dead brought to TV, which is weird. But yeah, this is a phenomenal movie. This is my third S tier.
And that's fair. So as for me, I have seen this movie. It's been quite a while since I've seen it. It's one of those that, again, like I said before, I meant to rewatch before we did the Marquee, but just didn't have the time to be able to get around to it. Just so much going on. For that reason, I know for a fact that I did like it the first time I saw it. And it is one of those like excellent portrayals of Jim Carrey being able to do dramatic fare just as well as him being able to do comedic fare too. Because I probably upon rewatch will end up putting it higher, but I know for a fact I liked it, so I want to rank it in a tier that reflects knowing that I liked this movie. I do have it in the B tier, right next to Man on the Moon. So that is kind of my general placement for. I do know that I like this movie. Let me rewatch it at some point here pretty soon, but for sure B tier. I'm okay, I personally would swap the Ace Venturas and then knock the lesser Ace Ventura down to C tier, but
this is it's going to go above Ace Ventura. Everything else is going to get knocked down one.
But you said S tier, right?
Yes.
So I said B tier. You said S tier. It's going in A tier.
So it's going to go A, but I'm putting it top of A. It's a disservice to Carl if we put it any lower than that. And Carl's good. I don't want to incur his wrath. So,
yeah, I feel like that's a pretty solid placement for it. I think once I give it another rewatch too, to remind myself exactly of the entire movie and how it plays out, I think I will probably end up wanting it in the A tier regardless. So.
The only the major downside to this is I need to keep this in mind. Anytime I see any Twitter poll where someone's saying name a underrated movie, and for some reason this is never on the forefront of my mind mentioning, and I need to actively keep it there. This is a movie that I will always recommend anytime someone says name an underrated movie. The Majestic. It is so good. And I want to rewatch it again now also.
Marathon. Find the time.
Yeah, Truman Show and Majestic. I mean, I'm not doing anything tomorrow. I'm watching some Jim Carrey movies. I don't know about anyone else, but I am waking up in that bed and I'm just going to stay there all day and watch movies.
I'm almost worried that Liar Liar is going to drop out of the A tier, and I'm not a fan of that because I want it in S tier.
We will. I am being mindful of that, and we will come back to that.
That's me, though. Yeah, we're going to shift some things around for sure.
All right. Next one, we'll go ahead and we'll let you start this one because I'm going to start the next one.
For sure.
Yeah. So we'll start off. This is Bruce Almighty.
I love Bruce Almighty. This is a great use of. I would call this the. So we're looking at different like eras of Jim Carrey, right? We've got the classic comedy era, which is that 94. You go your Ace Venturas, your Masks, your Dumb and Dumbers. That is the classic like goofy Jim Carrey. And then you have, that the modern comedy Jim Carrey, which I think probably kicks off with Liar Liar, and I think this movie would be included in as well. And I think modern comedy Jim Carrey has been really good as well. I think there's also going to be a era of Jim Carrey that's like postmodern Jim Carrey. Probably a misuse of the term postmodern, but whatever. This I think is modern Jim Carrey, and I think this is this is such like a really solid entry for me. Not only did it include probably one of the best castings I've ever seen for God in Morgan Freeman, but also what I would deem as the accuracy portrayal of what would a man do if he was given the powers of God, the all powerfulness of God, and just the inability to control like everyone's prayers and everything. I thought was such like a fantastic portrayal of that.
I think that movie would actually be like R-rated if that.
Oh, sure. Probably.
What would a person do if they were limited to PG-13 and they had the powers of God? Which you would think having the powers of God means you weren't limited to PG-13, but
I know exactly what they would do. They would make a monkey come out of someone's butt.
Oh, Hector? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same guy who plays Hector. If you see a movie that has a Hispanic man named Hector in it, it's the guy. Same actor. He's Hector in everything.
He's Hector in Fast and Furious. He's Hector in Bruce Almighty. Yeah. But yeah, no, I thought like in terms of kind of the ideas and everything this movie was playing with, I thought it was just smartly written. I love like the throwback also to It's a Wonderful Life, where he did you want me to throw a lasso around the moon and pull it down for you? And then he literally pulls the moon down and changes like the tides on the earth and everything. It's so funny. It's like so much damage is probably happening somewhere over another country, but whatever. It's so funny. I think all around this is just a classic like modern Jim Carrey comedy. It's good.
I also will mention that I'm starting to realize that almost all of our like little video clips and stuff we've ever used on this channel all come from Jim Carrey movies.
That's true.
Because this was also our to the news bit for the tagline that we had for a while. So
yeah, because that includes like one of the early, more prominent Steve Carell roles, playing Evan Baxter.
Yeah, Evan Baxter.
And then, of course, they made the sequel to this, which is fine.
They did not make a sequel to this.
No. It's not one of those movies that we say doesn't exist, but it was fine.
It's just one we don't watch.
it's one that we've watched and kind of just okay.
Like, cool. Well, don't have to watch that ever again. That's out of the way.
I like I do the cha-cha.
Like a sissy girl. Yeah, it was a fun movie. Where do you have it ranked at?
It's my third S tier. So Truman Show, Liar Liar, Bruce Almighty are my 3 S tiers.
Damn it.
I like I do the Bruce Almighty.
This is another one of those. Unfortunately, I had to put it somewhere, and I just had higher opinions of all the other movies. I love this movie too.
I'm going to tackle you.
No. Like Jim Carrey with the powers of God, outstanding concept. I love the fun he has with it, but also the meaning behind the movie. Kind of like we said, it's hard to top Morgan Freeman as God, except maybe Charlton Heston.
Moses?
I'm referencing that movie Almost an Angel that had Paul Hogan in it, where Charlton Heston played God?
He got promoted from Moses to God.
To God, yeah. In a movie that no one else except our father has ever watched.
Probably, yeah.
It's another one of those movies I think is like kind of underrated. It is really slow and dry at some points, though, so I get it. But as far as Bruce Almighty goes, I was putting it in a D tier, but I am okay if it goes higher. I am not, especially now that we've already been ranking a bunch of these movies, I am not completely 100% having to stick with D. You had this in S?
Yeah. Putting it in D tier. I woke up with a headache today, and it's coming back now.
Oh, shut up. I'm okay with wherever we want to put it for the most part. The only thing I would want to still put everything in A tier, I would want to put above Bruce Almighty.
We might need to shift some things into S tier because I can't imagine you have anything else on this list that's actually S tier.
I do not.
I think you've used all your S tiers, and now I've used all my S tiers. So we actually could start shifting some things up into S tier.
So I'm going to go ahead, since we're limited to 3 and there's nothing else that's S tier. I don't even think there's anything else A tier worthy, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't have even anything else that goes A tier. I'm going to move Majestic and Ace Ventura up to S tier. But again, I am open to, we could move these around here in a little bit as well.
I do have one other movie on this list that I put in A tier, but I can see arguments as to why it would fall below.
Okay. So I'm going to move those two up to S tier. As far as Liar Liar compared to Bruce Almighty, which one would you want to rank higher?
Liar Liar first.
Because again, this is kind of like what I was saying. This is in a realm of movies where Jim Carrey's character is kind of controlled by a supernatural power of some sort.
Yeah, and then put the mask up there too. Kind of, yeah. A tier is the Jim Carrey controlled by a supernatural presence.
I'm going to put Bruce Almighty right below Liar Liar, and I'm going to leave that last spot in A open.
You want to hear my argument for the movie that I'm considering putting there?
Yeah.
I don't really have a good one. I just really like it.
I am also kind of like leaving it a little bit open to interpretation for this next one, because I know this next we're going to get a lot of hate.
Yeah. Yeah, y'all ain't gonna like us. Sorry, guys.
But I feel like I have a logical, as long as everyone's willing to stick with me and understand why I'm saying what I'm saying, hopefully it would make sense and everyone would be like, okay, we get that. That works.
I'm going to preface this by saying, please, nobody call Sabrina Ramirez to this stream.
Yeah, I was like, I know we have a couple of friends who absolutely adore this movie, and I am sorry for what we're about to do to it. We're talking about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which I know is a very near and dear and beloved movie. So I actually had to sit down and think about this and exactly how I wanted to word this, because I want to make sure people understand a very prominent viewpoint here that we all have. Just some people, I guess, don't verbalize it a lot. This is a beautiful movie and top notch in the way it was made, the way it's filmed, everything. It's a perfect example of a movie that may have different opinions based off of how people are able to watch and interpret it. I'm going to say it's beautiful in far as the story it's telling, the way it does it. There's not much like digital effects in this. A lot of the effects are done practically, and it's amazing how they pull that off. Like I love everything that went into making this movie. My problems with the movie is just how the movie plays out. I can't stand all of the bouncing around, and it makes it a chore to keep up with. Again, and I've said this before, I deal with a lot of like really bad ADHD, and my ability to focus on a story when watching the movie. I know it sounds boring, but I really prefer a straightforward linear narrative style. And this movie does not do that. Like, when this movie begins, I don't know at which point in the lives of these characters we're at, and then when does it bounce back and it comes forward, and at what points. I know the movie's trying hard to get us to understand it. Like, that's why Clementine's hair color changes multiple times. It's trying to keep us on track for at what part in the lives of these characters are we at, and are we viewing at any given time. But I'm trying to figure that out. And then on top of that, we also have I'll refer to it as the soap opera drama of everyone who works for Lacuna, that they're all having like whatever affairs with one another and relations. And there's that also happening. And it's just really hard for someone who has a hard time focusing to be able to understand or get the concept of the movie. It is a beautiful movie. From a technical aspect, I would rate this as an S, and it very much deserves to be S tier. For me, I have to put an F. Like, this is a hard movie for me to watch just because I can't follow what's going on. And when you watch a movie, you want to be lost in this world. You want to get lost in the story and the narrative. And I can't do that with this. My brain can't wrap around what I'm supposed to be holding on to and taking in. And it makes it a very hard watch for me. So I'm sorry, I have to put an F, but I completely understand why people love this movie. And it does. I feel like I said this with like Skinamarink, that horror movie last year. Great achievement in how the movie was made. I'll never watch it again. It's a phenomenal movie, but I can't get into it because of that lack of being able to latch onto something and focus on what's being told to me. That's my soapbox. I hope everyone understands. I feel like as long as everyone's able to understand that, we could all move forward to a better place where we're able to accept people's opinions for how they perceive a movie based off of what they go through in their personal lives.
No, screw you. You suck.
That was what I was expecting anyways.
And that's the beautiful thing about tier lists, is that they cater to the people making the tier list. I don't think it's rare, I think, that you're ever going to find two individuals tier lists who look exactly the same. I mean, it's possible, given a limited number of entries into the lists, you might stumble upon people who have the same list. But movies as an art form are supposed to appeal to different people in different ways. I mean, there's the general idea that the filmmakers want to get across and hope that all people who watch the movie pick up on. But then there is what our experiences tell us, and how we view things, our points of view and all that, and how they mold things. For instance, you put this at an F tier. I'm not putting it at an F tier. I have only seen it once, and this is like the one movie I really, really like. I wanted to rewatch Majestic, but this is the one movie that I really, really wanted to give another real fair shake to before doing this Marquee. But again, time and just all of that kind of gets away. For the time being, I do have to put this at a D tier because I'm not fully 100% on the same plane as you are in terms of being able to take in the movie and understand it. I do remember being very confused as to about what was going on the first time I watched it. I do think this is a movie that improves for me upon a rewatch, but that requires me to do a rewatch. Unfortunately, at this point, I do have to go off of my first time viewing it. And the first time I viewed it was a confusing kind of state of affairs for me. Again, I know you've watched it another time right before doing this list, so you have it fresh in your brain. Me, I 100% need to give it another watch through, and maybe my ranking for it goes up a little bit after that. But
I did rewatch it for the Marquee, and I would say my opinion of it is a lot better. Also, this movie came out in 2004. So when I first watched this movie, I was just like, hey, there's a lot of people saying great things about this movie, and I'm down for a good dramatic romance drama from Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet. I'll throw this movie on and watch it, and cool. And I'm like, this movie is just so dull, and I don't know what's going on. What the hell? And so I just cast it aside. Watching it now, I now watch it through the eyes of someone who is going to talk about movies on the internet for the public to hear. and criticize and whatnot. So I watch this under a different scope nowadays. So I am looking at more like the technical aspects of what went into making this movie. And then also accepting the fact that, hey, I'm different than every other person on this planet. We're all going to have our different viewpoints and how we take in a piece of art. And it's all going to have different meanings to us. So I'm not saying I'm correct. I'm not casting down anyone saying that everyone else must also hate this movie because of the non-linear storyline that it does. But I understand why people like it and that people are capable of wrapping their head around the story better than I am.
Put it in D tier.
I'll put it in D. I'm gonna put it above Grinch.
We're gonna put this tier list out on Twitter. And I really truly feel like this is the one movie that people are going to be, what the hell are you guys thinking on?
I might not put this on Twitter just because.
No, do it. Don't be a coward.
So I'll put it on there, but I'll put the caveat. You can't complain about where we put Eternal Sunshine unless you are watching this video. Unless you are watching this either right now live or you come back and you watch it on a replay and you understand. Please don't complain about Eternal.
Unfortunately, they can complain because that's the same point of you doing things on the internet and putting your opinion out on the internet. This comes with the territory. You got to take the heat. Got to take the heat in the street. Can't take the heat. Get out of the street.
If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen that was filmed in a way like Lord of the Rings with a forced perspective view. Those of y'all familiar with this movie, you know exactly what scene I'm talking about.
This is an outrage. There.
Everyone unsubscribe. Robert can't watch movies. It's not that I have problems with non-linear storylines. I was talking to my brother about this before, and I brought up like Memento. Memento is a non-linear storyline that bounces around, but it does things to help you keep track. It does like the forward is, I can't remember if like the forward's in black and white and the reverse is in color or vice versa, but it has ways to separate it so you can understand and follow along.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Oppenheimer. I wonder what those two movies have in common.
Yeah, Oppenheimer. There was parts of Oppenheimer that were a little rough for me as well because of the bouncing around.
But you had the black and white and the color for Oppenheimer. Both Christopher Nolan, by the way. That's the connection.
Anyways, Chris, are we done with Eternal Sunshine? Are you ready to move on to the next one?
Please.
Correct answer would be yes, man.
Oh, yeah, man. Yes, man.
Would you like to start this one off?
Yes, man is my other A tier. This is another one of those movies I think falls under that modern Jim Carrey. Now, granted, this one is Jim Carrey like actually playing, to a degree, I believe, a very realistic portrayal of a human being, and not just a comedic goofball cartoon character.
I see myself in his character in this movie.
You have a fly crawling on your eyeball too?
I mean, I have a gnat flying around right now, so
as usual. I think the combo of Jim Carrey and Zooey Deschanel is a funny combo. Plus, you got Zooey Deschanel's being all quirky and doing all her quirky Zooey Deschanel stuff. On top of Jim Carrey's, he's playing as a straight man, but he's playing as a little bit of a goofball in there too. And then Terrence Stamp. Terrence Stamp just coming out of nowhere and being the motivational speaker guy, I thought was just such a funny element to add to the movie. Overall, like this is also one of those movies where it like sneaks in some people you didn't realize were in there. Specifically like Bradley Cooper, kind of just popping in there and having a role in this movie. It's like, wait, this is before I knew who Bradley Cooper was, and he's just in this movie. But this is like right before his like career really kind of took off, I think.
It also right has, what's his scumbag from that 70s show in it.
Yeah, I was trying not to mention him.
That's why I'm not saying his name. I'm just referred to him as what's that scumbag.
Yeah, that guy.
Because I actually forgot his name off the top of my head right now.
No, I got his name in my head. I'm not saying it. Anyway, as a whole, this movie is actually just a ton of fun. It does play along the same lines as Liar Liar, where we're talking about like there's something that's forcing this character to be the way he is, essentially. But This is more so his inner conscience telling him, you need to say yes to everything, otherwise you are not living life correctly. And I think it's a very like clever way of doing the same kind of idea, but just a little bit different. There's so many other side characters, like is it Rhys Darby?
Yes, his boss.
He's
so good in this.
I'm having a Harry Potter party or whatever.
If you like Rhys Darby in this, you need to watch Pirate Radio, or it's also called the Boat That Rocked or whatever.
The Boat That Rocked, yeah.
He's good in that also. I love his character in that movie.
Oh yeah, the ledge scene with Luis Guzman. Yeah.
I wish you would step out from that ledge, my friend. Yeah, that was good. What's her face from Rizzoli and Isles is in this.
And then is it? Am I getting his name right? Is it John Michael Higgins or? Oh
yeah, John Michael Higgins. He's good in this also.
He's a really good go-to kind of a comedic guy.
Brent Briscoe as the most annoying homeless man ever. Can I use your phone? Hey, you got a lot of money there. Can I have it all?
Yeah. And then he just jumps in the bush.
Yeah. Well, no, he's got one of my favorite lines of the entire movie. Like, man, I've been on hard times, but my luck really has turned around ever since I started hanging outside that convention center. That's great. That's a big brain move right there.
Is this movie like anything really special to write home about? Not necessarily. No. It's not. I think in terms of if we look at the big scheme of movies out there, you probably could say that this movie is forgettable. But for me, I've watched it several times. I just personally really, really enjoy this one. And that's why I threw it in the A tier for myself.
This was also the movie that when the first time I went to LA, I really appreciated going to the Griffith Observatory because I had just seen it in this movie. I was like, oh, okay. Here's a filming location I'm familiar with.
Those of us
I saw whatchamacallit.
Yeah, so those of us with culture and taste love the Griffith Observatory because of La La Land, or some people because of the movie that was in La La Land, Rebel Without a Cause.
Rebel Without a Cause, that's it. That's the one I was trying to think of, yes. Which is also a really good movie, but I hadn't seen it yet. I saw Yes Man first, so Griffith Observatory is more Yes Man to me than Rebel Without a Cause, or, La La Land, yeah. Anyways, so you have this A tier?
A tier for me.
I had it D tier, but you kind of convinced me that it should be higher up. That and the board is also convincing me because there's no room in D, and I'm not putting an F. So
I have a secret talent at convincing. Apparently, I didn't realize.
Or that's just the way the board is going. That's the way the cookie crumbles.
Let me have a talent.
Let you have a talent. So you said A, I said D, so it should go between B and C, probably.
It would. I think it would go somewhere in B. You'd probably end up moving the mask back up.
Or I'm moving mask up. Yeah, I can't see it going above any of those.
Yeah, it would either move mask up or Man on the Moon down. That's your options there.
Was Griffith Observatory in a Grand Theft Auto game?
That would make sense. I think Grand Theft Auto 5 is supposed to be Los Angeles, essentially. So was that San Andreas?
Yeah. So I was going to say, I'll be honest, I lost track of what they did with Grand Theft Auto after San Andreas. I primarily only played Vice City, and I started playing San Andreas, and then I got bored with it.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to basically almost be like a 1-to-1 remake of Los Angeles itself, so it would make sense for it to be in GTA 5.
I am kind of interested in the new one, but
it is San Andreas because GTA 6 hasn't come out yet.
Well, no, there was San Andreas, and then there was another GTA after San Andreas. They went back to numbering them again.
That might be it then. Oh, San Andreas might be 4.
Well, so there was Grand Theft Auto 1, 2, and 3, then Vice City and San Andreas, and then I think the one after San Andreas may have been 4, and then they did 5, and then there's this new one that's coming out.
That's confusing, and I hate it, and we're talking about Jim Carrey.
Yeah. All right, guys. Let's save some time on this one. F tier.
F tier.
I don't remember. I've seen this movie. I remember it wasn't awful. It wasn't like super awful, but I don't remember a single thing from this movie. So
I just watched it a few days ago for this.
You don't remember anything from it.
I just watched it a few days ago for don't stampede over my punchline. I watched it a couple days ago for this Marquee for the first time. I've tried to live my life going as long as possible without seeing Dumb and Dumber 2. The first Dumb and Dumber is magic in a bottle, and you can't recapture that. This is not one of those movies one of those comedy sequels that it's a perfect example of a general comedy sequel is what I'm trying to say. Most comedy sequels, especially if they're done, years to a decade or decades after the original, usually do not recapture that magic again. For like the Ace Ventura movies, you got to do it like back to back as close as possible to each other, which they did. For Dumb and Dumber, they did not, and it shows. I know that they also did that Dumb and Dumberer or whatever, that prequel to Dumb and Dumber with the other actors. Jim Carrey not involved, whatever. That I don't even remember if I've seen that movie. This one though, yes, I did watch it a few days ago before doing the Marquee, about a week ago or so. And yeah, I don't remember anything from it. No, I do. I do remember some stuff from it. The problem is that there's a few moments that I chuckled in it, but overall, I think I probably, if I didn't have to watch it for the Marquee and give it a fair shake, I probably would have turned it off. And there's only a few movies that I ever have done that for. I feel like I'm infamously known now at this point for saying The Love Guru and Zoolander 2 are both movies that I turned off after getting probably like 30 minutes into each one. Just like, all right, I literally can't handle this anymore.
At least you turned off Zoolander 2. I had to sit through the theater in that one. Ugh.
Yeah, you could have walked out. You could have just walked out. This movie, every line in this movie is supposed to be like a comedic line of some sort. And I don't remember that in Dumb and Dumber in the first one. I remember there actually being like lines that propel a story or move a story forward. And that just I don't think that exists in this one. And it's just like every line that comes out of their mouth is really stupid and is meant to just try to elicit a laugh of some sort. And it doesn't. It just doesn't. And it's not any fault to Jeff Daniels or Jim Carrey. I think they're doing the best they can trying to reprise these characters. But as a whole, I just don't think the movie recaptures the fun of the first one.
Now, you got to give it up to them for marketing, though, because everyone's like, yeah, this movie's dumb. And like, that's the point.
That's the point.
That's how you turn a negative into a positive. Like, that's what you're supposed to say. It is dumb. No, this movie actually is dumb. It's like, the first one was dumb, but it was smart dumb. This one is dumb.
It's dumber.
God. Anyways.
I actually will never watch it again, probably.
Yeah. All right, next movie. Sonic the Hedgehog.
That's weird that we have like the two open spots right now are C and F, and yeah, you're gonna have to shift some things around because I don't think this goes.
Neither one of these movies are gonna go F tier.
No.
Obviously, we're doing Sonic, and then the last one is Sonic 2, so neither of those are F tier movies, so.
Yeah.
So if you would like to start talking, I will go ahead and start shuffling things around. Like I know our F tier is pretty much going to be Grinch, Cable Guy, and Dumb and Dumber 2.
Pretty much, yeah. I know that you want to. I know you know where you're going to put these movies. I'll give you a nice heads up, and this will probably be a heads up for everybody. Yeah. As Nerd is saying right here, both Sonics for me are in the C tier. Both on this list. Both of them are C tier compared to the rest of Jim Carrey's fare, but I actually think that both Sonic movies are actually very well done in terms of trying to bring a comic book, a video game character to life and actually make a really good, fun movie and story off of. And a large portion of that, I'm going to be honest, think what you want in terms of the stink raised online from people and the time and effort put in by animators, but the changing of Sonic's look from when this movie was originally going to come out to what actually came out in the final product was night and day so much better. Such a great decision on their part, regardless. There he is. Waiting for that. Dude, go back and watch it. When we were talking about Truman Show, we definitely said, where's PLD? He's gonna love where my placement of this is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, in terms of Sonic the Hedgehog, both of them are really good movies. I think the sequel does edge out the first one a little bit more. And part of that is because of the inclusion of both Tails and Knuckles, as well as, let's talk about the Jim Carrey of it all. They actually made Robotnik look like how Robotnik looks in the video games.
Well,
in the sequel.
He's kind of missing a one particular feature that really stands out for Robotnik. He's not as rotund in the movies as he is in the video games.
He was a little bit.
No, not as exaggerated as he is in the video games. He's damn near a walking sphere. In this, he's a regular guy.
Yeah, but this is live action. He's a regular guy. He's not actually a cartoon character.
So here's the one thing that I do have against these movies in the characterization of Robotnik, and I'll go ahead and say it bluntly. They could have gotten a bigger person to play that role.
I mean, that's probably true.
That would have been more accurate to the character. But
as true as that is, I would say that you're doing what you can with the character in these movies. I mean, Robotnik can't be like a CGI character. He's got to be a real person. Of course, yeah, you could get probably a bigger person to be able to portray him, but they had Jim Carrey, so it is what it is.
We've gotten bigger people to play Kingpin, like in the Spider-Man stuff. And
I was going to say
you can't.
That's my argument for what you were saying, is because Kingpin does not look like how he looks in the comic books at all. No. Because you can't portray Kingpin like he looks in the comic books.
He'd have a heart attack.
He's unrealistic. He's unrealistically misproportioned as a human being can get, essentially, in the comic books. But anyway, all that aside, the Jim Carrey performance of it all I thought was actually a lot of fun for these movies. He was very eccentric, which the more I watch these movies, the more I realize that actually fits the character of Robotnik pretty well. The guy's got to be pretty dang eccentric to be able to create all those robotic inventions that he does. And then, of course, I think Sonic is expertly portrayed in these movies. Just all around, I think the story. I know we're on the first one, but honestly, like, I can really kind of talk about both of them as a whole. I put them both in C tier. I do have Sonic 2 edging out the first Sonic, though, like I said before. So they're both C tier for me.
So for the first Sonic, pretty much we've said everything that I have. I mean, this is a solid video game movie in a giant ocean of terrible movies based off of video games.
Correct.
This is one of the floaters. This is one of the ones staying above the water. It could hang up there with like the animated Super Mario Brothers, with Detective Pikachu, with the first Tomb Raider.
Angry Birds. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but yeah, I think the Sonic the Hedgehog they did a really good job of, and it puts faith in humanity that we can create a really good video game movie. So yeah, I think my only real downside to it, I think there's too much focus on the humans in this. I would have loved it a little bit more if they had stayed within the realm of like the video game worlds, like Big Green Hill or whatnot, all the different levels. If they could have done something like that instead of having Sonic come to the real world, which is very much like what they did with the original Super Mario, the live action Super Mario Brothers. They had them in the real world, and then they kind of, well, no, it's backwards.
Real world.
Any of that, yeah.
It's an alternate world that still exists in the same reality.
I would have liked to have seen it stay more in the video game worlds instead of bringing it to our real world. But
yeah, but then you don't necessarily do live action at that point. You would just do like the same thing they did with the Super Mario Brothers movie.
That, and then again, like I was saying, Jim Carrey wouldn't have necessarily been my first pick for Robotnik. I would have liked to have seen someone who fits the role a little better. But as far as personality and the chaotic energy that Robotnik needed, Jim Carrey fits that bill perfectly, and he does an amazing job with that. If you're overlooking the physical appearance of Robotnik, he does as best as he can with that look without that one particular detail. That's my only real nitpick of it. So I have the first one. I had it B tier. So you said you put them both in C?
I have them both in C, have the second one over the first one.
So I'll talk about that here in a minute.
Yeah.
So you had C, I had it B. So it's either like top of C or bottom of B. I said let's put.
I mean, my personal thing is you just shift Batman down into D and then put the two Sonics in C and flip them around. But that also depends on where you're wanting. That also depends on where you're wanting to put the sequel.
Yeah, we're kind of jumping the gun on talking about Sonic 2.
I mean, I'm not. I mean, they're both the last two movies on this list, so you can say your piece about Sonic 2.
So moving this.
Also, yeah, there is a Knuckles show that is apparently on right now, and I would actually like to go back and check that out. But
I could have sworn I heard people saying not kind things about it, though.
Yeah, I think they were saying that it's more. Was it Adam Pally? His character from the movies is more of the central focus of the show than Knuckles actually is, which is a choice. But
yeah.
I understand it. I get it. If you're working within a budget, you really can't have the CGI character be the main focus of the show. But if that's the case, then why are you calling it Knuckles? You know.
Also, I will quickly, if PLD, if you're here, please feel free to go back to where we're talking about Eternal Sunshine. There is a very good logical reason as to why it's in D tier. Again, I'm going to have to put some kind of disclaimer up on like Twitter or whatever about this. So make sure you watch.
Disclaimer, watch the show.
Reasoning for why it's in D tier.
We're going to have to start clipping out parts of the show and putting them up on things.
Yeah, possibly. I might clip that out and put that specifically on Twitter, just that little bit of talking about it.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll see. It depends on how I feel tomorrow.
It's not going to happen, folks. Don't worry about it.
So for Sonic 2, I agree. Like, it's just about as solid as the first one. My only real nitpick about it, while I feel like the first movie is pretty solid the entire time, I don't feel that way about Sonic 2. And it's really like what everyone else has said about this movie. That weird little bit involving that wedding
yeah,
is super out of place. This movie is about Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Robotnik. Why the hell do I care about random person's wedding in this? Like, it was so out of place. It broke the flow of enjoying a Sonic movie. Get that out of there. Because of that, because that was a choice that somebody made. I said the first Sonic was B tier for me. I put this one in C tier. So I dropped it down. I feel the first one was superior because it was a solid story from beginning to end, while this one has a misstep in like literally the middle of the movie, and I can't stand it. The rest of the movie is great, but
I actually completely understand that, because when I first saw it, I felt kind of the same way. It's like, wow, this is a huge detour we're taking in the middle of this movie for some reason. But upon thinking back on the movie, I forget about that part, and I really remember all the fun aspects that involve the actual characters that I'm here for: the Sonic, the Tails, the Knuckles, all of that. And because of that, because those aspects I think outweigh that weird little detour in the middle of the movie. That's why I put that one above the first one. Plus, again, we're talking about including Tails, we're including Knuckles. We didn't have to redesign them this time. We just went in with them looking exactly like they should. Idris Elba is such a fun choice for Knuckles, and the way they portrayed Knuckles as a character, I think, is a fun choice. Changing up Jim Carrey's look for Robotnik, making him look more like the video games, I thought was an excellent direction, obviously, to go. And the fact that they're setting up Sonic 3, which I expect to be a lot of fun as well, I thought was like really cool. So That's why, despite that weird detour, it does edge out the first one for me. But I had them both in C, so go figure.
Now, at least the really positive thing I can say about this, at least when Sonic 2 came out, it wasn't immediately followed by a worldwide pandemic crashing everything. So
this is the insane thing to me in terms of like how time has moved, that both Sonic and Sonic 2 have happened. And like around the time of the pandemic and everything, the first Sonic came out, then boom, pandemic. And it's like, we've already gotten a sequel, and now we're going into the third one. And we're so far removed from 2020. And I know that the pandemic was, heavily bleeding into 2021. A lot of people argue beginnings of 2022 to some degree as well. So it lasted for, quite a while. But the fact that we're already going into the third part of this franchise here pretty soon, and over the course of 4 years, like it's been 4 years, time is weird. Is what I'm getting at.
This is good. I like this casting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Shadow, as far as I'm aware, has always had kind of like a gruff kind of a voice to him, like a darker, gruff kind of voice. I think if you take Keanu Reeves and you like put him an octave or octave and a half lower than his normal talking voice, I think you find a good voice for Shadow. So I'm actually super on board with that voice cast.
All right, so I am going to put Batman Forever down to D, and I'll stick Sonic 2. I'm going to put Sonic 2 at the end of C, so I'm going to have Ace Ventura in between them.
Oh, man. Look, this is our tier list. I get it, but so many people are going to hate that Eternal Sunshine's underneath both Sonics.
I get why, like, everyone is...
I get it, but, like, this is just our preference, guys. That's how it works.
This is my cry out into the ether that I don't know if anyone is actually going to get. I understand why you want to rate it higher. Can you understand why I want to rank it lower? As long as we can both understand these, I'm willing to understand you. Can you understand me? If we can understand one another, then we're closer to world peace. That's all I got to say about that.
Everybody hold hands and sing Kumbaya.
Exactly. You are capable. Every single person on this planet is capable of understanding another person. It's possible. It's just a choice whether you choose to understand them or...
You're getting way too deep for a Marquee right now.
I know.
We're doing tier ranking of movies. I just want you to know that you are capable of understanding another human being.
It is a choice that you are actively making. I'm waiting for someone like, holy crap, I'm watching them like rank Jim Carrey movies, and wasn't prepared to get like prophesized at.
Just know that spreading hate on Twitter is engagement farming, and it's a choice you're making.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
And then stupid sizing. Whatever. That works.
It'll be
all right. Do we want to move anything else around before we call it a night?
My biggest things is that I still prefer the sequel, the second Ace Ventura, to the first one. So they're so drastically far apart right now when I prefer the second one from the first one. And then, I mean, I like Liar Liar and Bruce Almighty in S tier, but they're pretty dang close being in the A tier.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything I'm really passionate about. As long as Majestic, I mean, really for me, Majestic being S tier is really the main.
So I think what I would do, let me check my list real quick because I'm pretty sure
everything else for me is like what you were saying. It's nostalgia. Ace Ventura and Dumb and Dumber.
What I would actually do is I would shift first Sonic down and then Yes Man down and then put Ace Ventura When Nature Calls where Yes Man is.
I could do that.
Because I think it just... Like, I like Yes Man, but I just remember the Ace Ventura movies. They just reflect... They're just better reflections, I think, of Jim Carrey. And I know we're going movie by movie here, not necessarily based on his performance, but I think they're just better reflections of a Jim Carrey movie, of a good Jim Carrey movie than Yes Man was, even though I do really like Yes Man. And I did argue for Yes Man being an A tier, but whatever. It's kind of hard to get around those other movies that are before it there.
Yeah. I'd say that looks good.
Yeah, because I mean, I think at this point it's easy to flip-flop the first Ace Ventura with Liar Liar on any given point. On any given day, I might feel different about
I
either
would
one.
still argue the nostalgia of Ace Ventura over Liar Liar. They're both good, but Ace Ventura is just really let loose.
I just don't know that nostalgia is really a necessary determining factor when we're talking about how good the movie actually is. Because that's just that. Yeah, that is your personal choice. But like, let's talk about like the goodness of the movie itself. Like, I mean, like Brian down here kind of agrees with me. I think I almost do think Liar Liar over Ace, but at the end of the day, it does. I can see it making sense keeping Ace Ventura in the S tier just because we got Truman Show up there, we got Majestic up there. You've got a nice, like, well-balanced grouping of Jim Carrey up there. You've got
I got a good answer for that.
You got the comedy and drama. You've got the drama. You've got the comedy.
I got a really good answer for that. So I was stating that Ace Ventura was like my first Jim Carrey, and it's probably most people's first like foray into Jim Carrey in a movie. People may be familiar with some of the movies he did before or his role in Living Color, but Ace Ventura really was like the first movie I saw Jim Carrey in. You were saying that Liar Liar was really the first movie you saw Jim Carrey in, and you got it's
first
kind of
movie.
The same idea.
It's not the first movie I've seen him in, but it's like one of the ones that happened at the same time I was coming up. The other ones they're kind of before my movie going time.
Yeah. It was the first one that you actually sat down, watched, and was able to understand and follow and,
for the most part,
and get. And that's how Ace Ventura was with me. The only reason I would, and looking at it from that viewpoint, the only reason I would go Ace Ventura first is, one, it came out before the other one. Two, if it wasn't for Ace Ventura, none of the other ones would have existed for the most part. If he didn't do such a good job in Ace Ventura, he would have never done Liar Liar.
Yeah, I think we keep it where it's at, and ultimately I think it comes down to like what I was saying. I think that S tier is a nice, healthy look at Jim Carrey's career as a whole. You've got both your hybrid comedy drama, you've got your solid drama, and then you've got your classic comedy.
Yep. I like, for the most part, I like where everything else is at on here. I can agree with this. So anyways, that is going to be our ranking of it. So I will clean this up and get it up on Twitter tomorrow. Please go easy on us, world, with that Eternal Sunshine. I know. I'm sorry, Sabrina.
It's not going to happen.
Anyways, let's go ahead and let's get Carl to come back out here. One last time, Carl. Sorry that we're overworking you tonight, but apologies.
Actually, do it this time, Carl.
Yeah, but now you can actually take everything off. Go ahead, Carl. Carl's quick on that draw.
Really trying to get out of here.
Yeah, Carl's got stuff to do tonight. So yeah, that is going to do it for the Marquee for this week. Now, next month, let's talk about what we're looking forward to next month for the Marquee.
And by next month, we mean
next week.
Marquee 2 weeks in a row. Y'all are spoiled. Y'all are spoiled out there.
Well, so there's a reason why it has to be next week. Those of you who are not familiar with the calendar, next Saturday is May the 4th. And you know what happens on May the 4th. I don't know. Have we already ranked Star Wars movies? We haven't even ranked Star Wars movies yet. Interesting. So we're not ranking the Star Wars movies. We're going to do something I feel like is really passionate with a lot of people. Next week, we will be tier ranking Star Wars music. So all those big themes that you love from Star Wars, we're going to have a crack at it, and we'll see where Yubnub winds up on this list. Here's a spoiler. One of us really likes Yubnub and the other one does not. Can you
remember when I said that some people like to put their choices based on nostalgia.
If y'all want a hint, I am the older brother.
Yeah.
So
he's had more experience with the original trilogy before it was special editioned.
Yep.
So
next week, next Saturday night, come back here and join us. We will be talking about Star Wars music. Where is the main theme going to land? How much do we still love Duel of the Fates? And where is the theme for Mandalorian going to go? Who knows?
We are doing shows. I will tell y'all right now, I have a list of 58 songs that I have compiled. We will not be doing a tier ranking of 58 songs. That is going to take all damn night. I will be narrowing that list down by a lot, but it's going to be grueling, and I want y'all all to know how much pain I'm going to be in over the course of this next week, getting that down to a reasonable number.
If you appreciated any of the content that we are bringing, please help him out. Streamlabs.com/Cinefanatics. You can. It might be a wild concept, but you can also donate to that when we're not live or we don't have a video currently up. That website is still available and active. So, yeah, if you would like to congratulate him or give him a token of appreciation for all the hard work that he's doing for this next Marquee, that would be great. But otherwise, yeah, that's going to do it for this Marquee. We hope to see you on the next one. Make sure, those of y'all who are watching live, again, very much appreciate everyone being here watching live. I love the interactions we got for this episode. So please bring that same energy next week, especially if you're a Star Wars fan and you got any opinions about music. I really don't think I have any hot takes on Star Wars music, or not yet. I might once I realize what all music is being ranked, but we'll see.
If you all show up next week, I might do the polls for you. So make sure you're here.
So anyways, yeah, those of y'all watching live, make sure you hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. This channel is doing very well lately. I am very happy. Especially, I'm happy with how we're doing on TikTok. That's right. You can follow us at the Cinefanatics on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.
For
at least on TikTok for the next few months.
9 more months at least.
Oh, yeah. So go over there, check that out. Apparently, everyone really likes my out of the theater reaction for Abigail. So I just put up on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, I put up a ranking of Luca Guadagnino movies since I saw Challengers the other night. So I got those. If you're interested in Luca Guadagnino, go check that out. It's only a minute long, so easily worth your time. So go give that a watch, give it a like, share it, whatnot. Make sure you follow us again on social media at the Cinefanatics on all the social media things. You can follow me personally at Robert at RCA Reacts on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, HEB's, the grocery store we shop at, here at my home. I'm also RCA Reacts everywhere I go, in my shower. Also, youtube.com/@RCA Reacts. Right now, I'm doing reactions to the X-Men 97, and I'll be back to full reactions after X-Men 97 is over.
And for the one or two of you that hung out through all of that, you can follow me at Chris Adams MLP on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, as well as twitch.tv/Chris Adams MLP.
Anyways, that is going to do it. Again, thank y'all for watching. We very much appreciate everyone who's here. We will see y'all next week. Good night.
Bye.